Welcome, traveler. Tonight we visit a place where moonlight glows softly and a mysterious train arrives only in dreams. This is the train that stops in dreams by Whispered Serene. The night air lay quiet over the small town of Brookhaven, a place tucked so neatly between the whispering pines and a river that moved as slowly as a drifting cloud. The streets had fallen silent hours before, porch lights dimmed, curtains gently drawn, and windows glowing faintly with the last breaths of evening warmth. Even the dogs, who usually barked at shadows in passing cars, had curled into peaceful silence. But in a small attic bedroom above an old bookshop, Mira Ellis lay awake beneath a moonlit window, staring up at the ceiling as though waiting for something she didn't have words for. The town always slept, but Mira rarely did. She pulled the blanket closer, burying her nose into the familiar softness, hoping it would bring comfort. It didn't. Her thoughts moved like restless tides, tugging and pulling without direction. School had felt heavy lately, voices too loud, hallways too bright, eyes always watching. Even when she smiled, something inside her remained quiet, unseen. It wasn't sadness exactly, just a weight, a fog that never moved. Her mother told her she thought too much. Her teachers said she drifted when she should focus. No one ever said anything about the ache of trying so hard to simply feel okay. She exhaled slowly. Why can't my mind just stop? Just for one night. Outside her window, the moon hung low and wide, glowing like a lantern hung carefully in the sky. The clouds were soft and pale, drifting like they were half asleep themselves. Stop. Stop. The world looked peaceful enough to swallow her whole into stillness. And then, at exactly 12 a.m., when the clock on the shop's downstairs wall clicked softly into the new hour, a sound pierced the silence. Not loud, not frightening. More like a chime, thin and silver, lifting into the night air with a voice that shimmered.
Ding, ding, ding.
Mira sat upright. The sound came from outside, from somewhere beyond the rooftops, echoing faintly like bells underwater. It filled the night in a way nothing ever had, soft but powerful, warm and mysterious. Her breath stilled in her chest. "What was that?" she whispered, barely more than a breath. The chime came again, longer this time, curling like smoke, calling like smoke. Ding, ding. She moved to the window slowly, heart tapping gently against her ribs. With careful fingers, she pushed the curtain aside, and her breath caught completely. There, floating, just above the tree line, at the edge of town, was a train.
We're being like a crow, fashion-bounded, floating misks. D.
The train made no rumbling or screeching, only the soothing hum of distant wind and the faintest ring of chimes that seemed to vibrate gently through the air rather than sound through it. The world looked peaceful enough to swallow her whole into stillness. And then, at exactly 12 a.m., when the clock on the shop's downstairs wall clicked softly into the new hour, a sound pierced the silence. Not loud, not frightening. More like a chime, thin and silver, lifting into the night air with a voice that shimmered.
Ding, ding, ding.
Mira sat upright. The sound came from outside, from somewhere beyond the rooftops, echoing faintly like bells underwater. It filled the night in a way nothing ever had, soft but powerful, warm and mysterious. Her breath stilled in her chest. "What was that?" she whispered, barely more than a breath. The chime came again, longer this time, curling like smoke, calling like smoke. Ding, ding. She moved to the window slowly, heart tapping gently against her ribs. With careful fingers, she pushed the curtain aside, and her breath caught completely. There, floating just above the tree line at the edge of town, was a train.
We're being like a crow, fashion-bounded, floating misks. D.
The train made no rumbling or screeching, only the soothing hum of distant wind and the faintest ring of chimes that seemed to vibrate gently through the air rather than sound through it. As if she had been waiting for this her entire life and only just remembered, her feet moved before her thoughts did. She slipped into her shoes, grabbed her coat, and opened the window carefully so it wouldn't creak. "But you know," she said, "this is how." Paw. Then wits she knows, and suddenly she followed the window carefully so it wouldn't creak. Cool night air brushed her face like a quiet welcome. With slow, soft steps, she climbed down the old trellis vines that lined the wall, the moon lighting every foothold perfectly. Coals, den, cow, past it. Pool, coals. When her feet touched the meadow grass, the world felt different, lighter, quieter, as though wrapped in velvet. The chime sounded once more, guiding her like a beacon of silver bells. She followed. The distance to the clearing felt shorter than it should have, as though the earth gently carried her instead of resisting her weight. Dew glowed on the grass like scattered diamonds, and fireflies pulsed in slow, calm rhythms. As she neared the train, warmth brushed her skin, a gentle radiance that felt like stepping into a hug she didn't know she needed. The conductor watched her approach with soft, knowing eyes. "Welcome, Mira," he said, and this time his voice came from his mouth, deep, warm, and steady, a voice built for guiding weary hearts. She swallowed. "You know my name?" "Yes," he said. "We know the names of all who need rest." Mira hesitated. "What is this place? Is this a dream?" The conductor smiled, his expression both kind and mysterious. "This is the train that stops in dreams. It comes only when called by a heart carrying too much weight." Mira lowered her gaze. "I don't know what I'm carrying. That," he said gently, "is exactly why you are here." He extended his hand, not demanding, simply offering. "Will you board, Mira?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she looked at his hand, then at the glowing carriage behind him, its windows flickering like candlelight. A soft humming vibrated beneath her feet, steady and comforting, like a slow heartbeat. Something inside her whispered, "Go." Mira took his hand. The moment her foot touched the first step, a warm breeze lifted around her, scented with lavender and distant rain. The air shimmered, and for a heartbeat, the world behind her faded, not disappeared, but softened into a blur of silvery light. The worries she carried, the overthinking, the exhaustion, the tightness in her chest, did not vanish, but loosened, as though someone had gently untied a knot. She stepped inside the carriage and drew a quiet breath. It was beautiful. Soft golden lanterns hung overhead, swaying slightly as if moved by a wind that wasn't there. The seats were upholstered in deep midnight blue velvet. Silver constellations, stitched across the walls, glowed faintly, shifting slowly like living stars. The whole train hummed with the rhythm of a lullaby. Only a few others sat inside, men, women, and children of all ages, each holding a small glowing orb cupped gently in their hands, like something precious and fragile. Ah, he said, I say you are fox. We smell all women. Their expressions were calm, peaceful, eyes half closed, as though listening to music only they could hear. What are those? Mira whispered. The conductor's eyes softened. Memories, hopes, burdens. Every passenger carries something different. Mira glanced down at her empty palms. But I don't have one. He leaned slightly, voice deepening with quiet gravity. You do. You just cannot see it yet. Before she could reply, the lanterns above flickered gently, and a soft bell chimed from somewhere deeper inside the train. The conductor turned. We are ready to depart. He looked back at Mira with warmth that reached his very bones. You should take a seat. The journey begins gently. She nodded and slid into the nearest seat by a window. As she settled, the velvet seemed to mold to her shape, holding her in perfect comfort. She exhaled, her breath easing out like a sigh that had been waiting years to be released. Outside, the moonlight shivered over the surface of the train as if blessing its path. The conductor lifted a silver pocket watch, clicking it open. Dreamliner departing, he announced softly. All hearts aboard. The train shivered, not with noise, but like a deep breath, filling its lungs, and began to rise, wheels lifting from the earth with weightless grace. The meadow dropped slowly below them, the town shrinking into miniatures of itself, rooftops glowing like sleeping embers. The world dissolved into a sea of stars. Mira pressed her hand to the window, awe filling her. They were gliding through a night sky so clear and endless, it felt like floating through infinity itself. Wisps of silver mist curled around the train, sparkling like fireflies. And then, at the very front of the carriage, a soft light appeared, glowing softly, pulsing gently. Mira stared. A tiny orb hovered above the seat beside her, warm and radiant, glowing with pale gold light. It drifted closer, wrapping her in a soft halo. As she watched, something flickered inside the orb, like a memory blurred behind fog. Her heart tightened. The conductor approached again, his voice almost a whisper. Your burden has revealed itself. Mira swallowed, voice small. But I don't understand. I don't know what's inside. You will, he promised, when you are ready to let it go. The orb posed once more, tender and patient, then settled gently into her open hands like something alive. Warmth spread through her palms, moving through her arms and into her chest, not burning but soothing, loosening tightness she'd forgotten she carried. Her eyes stung. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Mira felt the urge to sleep, not to escape, but to rest. The conductor bowed his head slightly. For now, close your eyes. The first dream car awaits. The lights dim. The train hummed softly. The train hummed softly. The world around her faded into a quiet lullaby of wind and stars. Mira closed her eyes. The dreamliner drifted through the night like a silver feather carried by the calmest wind. Mira sat with her hands still wrapped carefully around the glowing orb, its warmth pulsing softly against her palms like a quiet heartbeat. Here, fear, and the hum of the train vibrated through her seat and into her bones, not shaking or jostling, but steady and calming, like the rhythm of a lullaby. She could feel sleep around her, not heavy or consuming, but soft and patient. It waited, like a gentle hand on her shoulder. The lanterns above flickered softly, and the carriage lights dimmed until they glowed like candlelight. The conductor moved through the aisle slowly, his footsteps silent, his presence comforting and sure. "We will soon arrive at the first dream car," he said gently. His voice the warm glow of a fireplace. "You may open your eyes, Mira." She did. Outside the window, a river of stars flowed past, streaks of silver trailing behind them. Clouds softened into ribbons of glowing mist, and distant constellations shimmered like lanterns hanging in the heavens. The view was so peaceful, it made her chest ache in a way she couldn't name. The conductor stopped beside her seat. "Are you ready to step forward?" Mira looked down at the orb resting in her hands. Its light nudged softly, like a bird fluttering beneath her fingers. I think so." Her voice was quiet, but steady enough. He gave a small nod, his eyes gentle. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it is as soft as choosing to take one more step. He extended his hand once again. Mira rose from her seat, the velvet releasing her with a whisper. "Da, da." The floor beneath her feet glowed faintly, guiding her path as she followed him deeper into the train. They reached a tall archway carved of smooth silver wood, where symbols traced themselves across its surface in shifting constellations. "Ah, da." At the top, soft letters formed words that seemed to shimmer like dew. The doors opened silently. Warm light spilled out along the corridor beyond, and the air carried a scent like rain and wildflowers. Mira stepped through, her orb floating gently from her hands and drifting ahead of her like a lantern guiding the way. The first room opened itself. A vast meadow stretched before her, golden grass waving in a warm breeze, fireflies drifting like tiny floating stars. The sky was painted in colors too soft to name, something between lavender and sunrise. A younger version of Mira, maybe 7 years old, ran laughing across the meadow, hair flying behind her, arms open wide. She chased butterflies with reckless joy, her laughter ringing through the air. like music. Mira's breath caught. I remember this, she whispered. The field behind my grandmother's house. You were happy here, the conductor murmured. I was, Mira breathed. Before everything felt heavier. The younger Mira tripped on the grass, falling with a startled squeak, then burst into giggles. Her smaller self looked up toward invisible parents or friends, someone who once watched her run freely. Mira's throat tightened. When did I stop laughing like that? When someone forgets to rest, the conductor said, gently. The world begins to feel heavier than it truly is. They watched the scene fade like mist melting into morning. The orb pulsed brighter, floating higher. Come, the conductor said. There are more memories to see. The meadow dissolved into darkness, not frightening darkness, but the dim quiet of a school hallway after the day has ended. Lockers lined the walls, and papers scattered across the floor told stories no one would read. There she sat, 12 years old, alone at a lunch table, watching groups of kids laughing just a few feet away. Mira remembered this moment too. She remembered the ache in her chest, the wish to stand and speak, and the fear that her voice would sound wrong somehow. The younger Mira reached for her lunchbox, fingers trembling. She opened her mouth as though trying to speak, but closed it again. The silence in the room tightened around her small figure like invisible strings. Mira's heart clenched. I wanted to join them, she whispered. I just couldn't. The conductor lowered his head. Here is where your burden was born. The orb in Mira's hands surged with warm golden light, illuminating the room. Its glow washed over the younger Mira like dawn breaking. The storm slowed. The thunder softened into distant hums. The scene dissolved gently, leaving silence in its place. Mira stood still, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. Her chest felt raw, but lighter somehow, like doors, long closed, had opened inside her. The conductor spoke with kindness rooted deep. Mira, your burden is not weakness. It is the weight of moments you carried alone. She closed her eyes. The orb floated upward again, glowing stronger now, its light steady and sure. The rooms faded, and Mira found herself in a long hallway, lined with hundreds, no, thousands of lanterns. Each lantern held a glowing orb like her own, shining in colors from silver to deep gold, some bright, some dim. Ah, yes, but it is all I am. So, one check. Where is me? This is my time. The conductor placed a hand gently over one of them, its light fluttering like a heartbeat. Every passenger aboard carries something heavy, he said. Here, no one is alone. Mira looked down the endless hall, awed. So, what do I do with mine? You do not destroy it, he said. You release it when the time is right. Mira looked at her orb, watching shapes flicker inside. Memories, feelings, echoes of the girl sitting silent in a hallway, the storm that stole her breath, the laughter she lost. Wow, I don't know if I'm ready to let go, she whispered. That is why this journey continues. You will choose when you are ready. No sooner. He turned, leading her deeper into the corridor. Oh! Up ahead, the hallway opened into a vast chamber where windows stretched floor to ceiling, showing the night sky swirling in deep colors: violet, sapphire, silver. Stars flowed like rivers made of light. In the center stood an enormous brass bell carved with constellations. It glowed faintly, its surface warm like sunlit metal. Mira stared. What is that? The conductor's expression softened with reverence. That is the bell of remembering. It rings only when a heart begins to heal. As if answering his words, the bell trembled. A soft tone spilled into the air, gentle, luminous, wrapping around Mira like arms lifting the weight from her shoulders. Her eyes fluttered closed. Warmth poured through her chest. For a heartbeat, she felt held, safe, enough. The bell's glow brightened, filling the chamber with cascading light. The orb in her hands pulsed again, once, twice, and then settled into a steady radiance, softer and clearer than before. The conductor stepped closer and spoke just above a whisper. Nearer. Your healing has begun, Mira, and... But there is still one more room to face. Mira opened her eyes, breath trembling. What room? The final one, he said. The room of truth. A hush fell around them. Mira's pulse fluttered. What's in it? Your deepest fear, he said gently, and the reason you stopped believing you mattered. Mira's fingers tightened around the orb. A flicker of uncertainty stirred inside her chest, but beneath it, a small flame glowed. Strength, quiet but real. She nodded slowly. I'm ready to try. The conductor's eyes shone with pride, warm as sunrise. Then the path will open. The train hummed low beneath their feet. The chamber lights softened. A new doorway appeared ahead, tall and shadowed, carved from dark wood that shimmered like moonlit glass. The orb in her hands glowed brighter, brighter still, until its light washed over everything around her in warm gold. The doorway opened, and Mira stepped toward the unknown, guided by the heartbeat of her own healing. The Dreamliner continued its journey through the endless night sky, carrying hope and memory like lanterns drifting among the stars. Mira awoke with the lightest stir of breath, as though she had been floating instead of sleeping. For a moment, she wasn't certain whether she had truly opened her eyes or simply felt them open within another dream. Everything around her was so quiet, so weightlessly still, that she couldn't tell where the world ended and the dream began. The train glided forward, smooth as drifting starlight, the sound beneath the wheels, now a soft humming rather than the rattling rhythm of metal on metal. It felt almost like gliding through clouds rather than riding on rails. Outside the window, the darkness of night had shifted into a quiet blue glow, like the sky just before dawn, except there was no horizon, only mist swirling like glowing silk. Mira slowly, peacefully sat up. Arlo's voice was still in her memory, echoing warmly. Dreams always leave proof behind. His coat was still draped around her shoulders, soft and faintly warm. Someone must have placed a pillow beneath her head while she had slept. Black. She glanced around. The car was empty now. The lamps no longer cast golden light, but instead shimmered with a cool, moonlit silver. The door to the next car stood slightly open, and soft light spilled from it, inviting. And, she rose, the floor beneath her feet gently vibrating like a heartbeat. The silence was comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket. As she stepped forward, she realized she felt no fear, not the anxious flutter that used to clench her chest late at night, no hesitation, no hurry, just calm curiosity and something gentle, hopeful, and new. She walked toward the open doorway, and as she slipped through it, her breath caught softly in wonder. The next car was no longer a train car at all. Instead, she stepped onto a quiet platform, one she had never seen before. It had no walls, no ceiling. It opened wide to a sky filled with constellations, glowing brighter than any stars she had ever seen in waking life. The air smelled faintly of rain and pine, like the world had just finished cleansing itself. A cool breeze brushed against her cheek, carrying with it the peaceful sigh of distant wind chimes. At the far edge of the platform stood the conductor, hands folded neatly behind his back, silhouetted against a shimmering landscape of stars. His hat glowed faintly around the edges, and when he turned, his eyes held the soft glimmer of moonlight reflected on a quiet lake. "You made it," he said gently. No surprise in his voice, only warmth. "Welcome to the last station, the place where all dream travelers arrive when they are ready." "Ready for what?" Mira asked in a whisper. Speaking louder felt unnecessary, even impossible. "For the choice," he answered. "The choice to return or the choice to remember." Mira's brows lifted with confusion. Return? To where? The conductor stepped aside, revealing a stone pathway that led away from the platform down into an endless field of glowing grass that swayed like waves under moonlight. The sky above danced with auroras of lavender and silver, slow and soothing. "You may return to your waking life unchanged," he said calmly. "You will wake in your bed, and this dream will fade like so many do. Safe, calm, forgotten." "And the other choice?" Mira asked softly. "To remember everything," he said. "To carry this train, this night, and its magic into your waking world. If you choose that path, nothing will quite be the same. Dreams will always be near, just beneath the surface, guiding you. You will hear the whistle when you need courage. And the train that stops in dreams will never again be closed to you." Mira felt her heartbeat gently swell. Not loud, just fuller, like a lantern warming. "Why would anyone choose to forget?" she asked. "Because remembering asks you to believe," he said. "And believing asks you to change." Mira thought of her nights before this, tight, heavy, restless. The way fear used to wrap itself around her ribs like cold wire. The the way her thoughts used to spin too fast to escape. She thought of Arlo's voice. Dreams always leave proof behind. She looked up at the conductor, eyes steady. "I want to remember," she said. "The following pleasure is the main to catch." The conductor smiled, the warmest and most peaceful expression she had ever seen. "I knew you would." He extended a hand, palm up. Resting in it was a small silver key, simple, smooth, and glowing softly with pale blue light, almost like it was alive. "This key unlocks doors only you will ever see," he said. "Doors between the waking world and the dream world. Keep it close. Use it only when your heart needs quiet." Mira reached out and took the key. It felt weightless, like holding moonlight. "Will I ever find the train again?" she asked. The conductor bowed his head slightly. "When the wind calls." When the wind calls, end. The wind calls. The door. When the night is ready, and when you are. A soft whistle sounded in the distance, not loud, not sharp, just a low, velvety tone that wrapped around her like a lullaby. The platform beneath her feet shimmered in, end, 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 end. The stars softened, spreading into a blur of silver light. The world dissolved gently, not falling away, but folding inward, like silk gathered into the palm of a hand. Mira closed her eyes, breathing in the calm. And when she opened them, she was back in her bedroom, lying beneath her blankets, the first pale hint of dawn filtering through the curtains. For a moment, she wondered if it had truly happened, if it had only been a dream, if she had imagined everything. Then she felt a small weight in her hand. The key, cool and impossibly real. She held it against her chest and smiled, slow, peaceful, genuine. Outside her window, far in the distance, barely audible beyond the waking sounds, a train whistle drifted through the morning air. Not loud, just enough to let her know, "I know, don't dumb." Don't. Mira closed her eyes and let sleep take her gently once more, carrying the piece of the dream with her. She finally felt safe, and she finally rested.